Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Royal. I'm the president of the Faith and Reason Institute in Washington, D.C., and the editor in chief of The Catholic Thing, which is a daily Catholic commentary on events in the world. You can subscribe for free at www.thecatholicthing.org. This is a podcast in a series that we're calling Faith Under Siege that we're producing in collaboration with Aid to the Church in Need USA, which is located in New York City. If you're not familiar with Aid to the Church in Need, I encourage you to go to their website. They are one of the major supporters of Christians around the world who are being persecuted and even martyred. And they are were partly the sponsor of my most recent book, which is called The Martyrs of the New Millennium, which was just published in 2005. We're very happy to have with us in this episode Bishop Georges Bacouni, who is the Melkite Bishop of Beirut, which is, of course, the capital of Lebanon. We're recording on March 23rd, 2026. There's a lot going on in Lebanon. The war in Iran has spilled over, of course, into Lebanon, and the Israelis are trying to suppress Hezbollah, which is an Iranian-supported group in Lebanon. And so we thought it would be useful to everyone. And also, we'd like to just know from the bishop what's going on. I want to just very briefly talk about the history of Lebanon, which, of course, is very complicated. It's one of the great early Christian regions of the Middle East. It flourished under the Byzantine Empire, then was taken over by Muslims, as many parts of the Middle East were. It was part of the Ottoman Empire until after World War I, and at which point the Ottoman Empire broke up. And then toward the end of World War II, Lebanon started to become independent. It was basically being administered by France for a while, and so it's had a strong French influence. And many people had great hopes for Lebanon. In fact, many people thought of it as kind of the Riviera of the Middle East, and Beirut is sort of the Paris of the Middle East. And unfortunately, politics and warfare and factionalism have put that in the past, at least for the time being. And I also think it's worth just mentioning, because I don't think a lot of our audience know this, that when Lebanon was set up as a rather independent nation, it deliberately sought to bring into its government the different religious groups that exist in that area. So the president is supposed to be a Maronite Christian. The vice president, if I have this right, is supposed to be a Shia Muslim. The Speaker of the Parliament is supposed to be a Sunni Muslim. And the deputy speaker is supposed to be an Orthodox, meaning an Eastern Rite Christian. So it was a place that when Pope Benedict XVI visited, he emphasized how much he hoped that this would be a kind of a beacon of hope, that in a very troubled region for the last several decades, that the very structure of the way Lebanon was put together was a beacon of hope that he hoped would spread out and show how people can live side by side with one another, even in the Middle East. So with that background, let me turn to our guest, again, Bishop Georges Bacouni of Beirut. Bishop Bacouni, welcome. Again, we thank you for being with us. Could you just comment, before we get into the current circumstances in Lebanon, could you just comment a bit on how that attempt at kind of a multi-ethnic, multi-religious structure in Lebanon began, and how it's worked out over recent decades?
Lebanon was during the Ottoman Empire a refuge for all the persecuted religions. So everybody came, all the Catholic, Christian, Oriental churches, they found refuge in Lebanon. The Orthodox, the Byzantine Orthodox, the Greek Orthodox, and the old Orthodox churches, the Armenian Orthodox, the Coptic Orthodox, and the Syrian Orthodox, and even the Shiite, the Muslim families, the Druze, they all are in Lebanon for many reasons during history time. Now, and the Christian until the 60s, we were 60% of the population. Now we don't have statistics, but we are not more than 30% or less than this. But in the democratic system of Lebanon, in the parliament, we are half deputies. When they have a government, it's half and half ministries. It's always like this to maintain the equality between Christian and Muslims. Now, we suffered since decades, first of all, from the Palestinian presence, because when the OLP started here in Lebanon, and they were based in South Lebanon in the late 60s. Then there's had the civil war in 75 until 1990. And then many wars between Israel and Hezbollah in 1996, 1993, 96, 2000, 2000. They withdraw from South Lebanon. They have 2006 and now the last 3 years. And we had three visits from three popes. John Paul II came to Lebanon after he held a special synod for Lebanon. Usually he does this. He used to do this for Africa, for America, not for one country. They do it. He did it for Lebanon. Then Pope Benedict visited us, and in this November, Pope Leo was in Lebanon, and he was the blessed are the peacemakers.
Yes, we all followed. Yeah, we all followed the visit of Pope Leo with great interest. It's obviously one of the first places that he's gone in his papacy. I just want to go back to one thing you just said. What you called the OLP, our audience will know as the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Lots of Gazans, lots of Palestinians went to Lebanon, as the bishop was describing, and that was the beginning of some of the tensions between the territory of Lebanon and the territory of Israel. Could you tell us the situation of the Catholic Church right now, and maybe other Christian churches as well in the region? Because we hear almost the only thing that we hear about in the United States, and I imagine even in Western Europe and other countries in the West, we almost only hear about the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. We hear almost nothing about where the Christian churches are, how they're faring, what difficulties there may be for you.
Let's say the problem started in Iraq with ISIS, when the Christians in Iraq were persecuted and many left Iraq, and the number of Christians has decreased. Then, when the problem started in Syria during the Assad regime in 2011, many Christians also immigrate because part of the reason was they used to take the young people to serve in the army. And the Christians were not involved in this conflict between ISIS and Assad regime. And a lot of Christians left. And recently, with the change that happened, also the Christian, because they were afraid from the new regime, because they used to be a fanatic Sunni groups. So many also left, are trying to leave. And we know that the number of Christian, Catholic and Orthodox in Syria has decreased a lot. Because in our community, our Melkite church, half of our vocations used to come from Syria. Now we don't have any seminarian almost from Syria. And many priests also immigrated and left Syria. And so in Lebanon, we had this problem since the economic crisis started in 2018. And then with the war and all this happening, the young generation is leaving and still leaving. So, and from all the Christian families, Orthodox, Catholic, and Evangelical. So, and this is the main problem of the Christian in the Middle East. This immigration that affected us a lot. So you recognize number of baptisms, number of weddings, everything has decreased a lot. So, and at the same time, all the Christian in the Middle East, they used to respect the local law in their country. We are not rebels. We are not against the government. So when there is a revolution or a group against the regimes, they used to consider the Christians that they are allied to the regime. But we are not allied. We have a local law. We have to respect it. And to live as a citizen in the country. What to do? And this is problem everywhere. In Lebanon, we are very attached to our country. But because we want an independent country, a country who live in peace with his neighbors, we are also suffering from the position of now of this war of Hezbollah and the war between Israel and Hezbollah, because the war between them is affected all Lebanon, not only Hezbollah. And the displaced people from the south are not only Muslim or this, let's say Shiite from the community of Hezbollah. They are Lebanese and many Christians. I have, because I served before as Archbishop of Tyre, South Lebanon. It's on the Israeli borders, right on the Israeli borders. And I lived in the world during 2006. And now many of our village where there is Christian, Melkites and Maronites, where there is mixed, let's say villages where Muslim and Christians, they left. No, none any Christian now is this in these villages. Where the villages are only Christian, they try to stay there. They are trying to stay there. And the Apostolic Nuncio in Lebanon, Monsignor Borgia, visited them. And 2 days ago, he was in Tyre. He went and he was in the mass and he visited the community. So the Christians are suffering. They can do nothing.
Yeah, if I can interrupt you for a second. So how are they suffering exactly? I mean, why is there so much, why are so many leaving? They were leaving even before this recent outburst of warfare between the Israelis and the Hezbollah in your country. But was it because of discrimination? Was it because of pressure from the Muslims, a lack of work or economic reasons? I think our audience would be curious to know why it is, because Christians have lived for so long in that area. Why are so many leaving now?
This is many things happens to the same time. Other than the economic crisis, you have the Beirut port blast, and it affected the Christian region of Beirut at that time. And at the same time, the increase of Hezbollah as an armed group, because the only militants, they have arms and they are well armed, and you are living within a country where you don't have the government, armies, security forces are not controlling totally everything. More than that, the Sunnite movement, ISIS, and we had in Lebanon. So we had a struggle with them in many places. So the Christians, they feel they are afraid of the future. What will happen? And we have a weak government because we have an armed group, the Hezbollah, and the government now cannot control. He said Hezbollah is not it's against the Lebanese law. He is outlaw now, and he has to give his arms to the country, to the security forces. But of course, he didn't accept, and there is a little tension inside the country between Hezbollah and the Shiite family and the others. Due to this reason, we don't want this war, and he took us to a war because he is allied of Iran. But what we have to do with Iran? It's not our problem. And
well, I mean, we hear in the West a lot about the We hear a lot in the West about the connection between Hezbollah and Iran. Is that, in your estimation, is that accurate, what we hear?
Yeah, it's true. Everything comes from Iran. Their salaries, the arms, everything from Iran, and even their orders. They consider themselves part of the, I don't know the word in English, this revolutionary group. I don't know how they call it in English. And so, at the same time, they were related to Khamenei. Now he was killed recently, but they obey more for the leaders in Iran than the Lebanese government. They are Lebanese. They are about the third of the Lebanese population. The same time, they are taking their orders from abroad, from Iran.
You were talking about
This
the
is
government is opposed to as Hezbollah, and I read about this that they are trying to control it, but it also seems like Hezbollah has infiltrated. It seems it influences the government and education and all that as well.
when I said around 30% of the population are Shiite. So they are part of the Lebanese population. They are everywhere because they are part of the population. They are not infiltrated because and everywhere they are there. And even South Lebanon, many of these villages are Shiite villages, and the militants, those who are fighting now, are from there. They are not foreigner or mercenaries who came from abroad. They are from Lebanon. So it's not, they were not infiltrated, but the number is increasing because the Shiite community is increasing. The number is increasing, and they are everywhere. And you have in the Lebanese army, almost the third of it is Shiite. They have relatives, they have families. So it's very difficult and complicated.
Yes. Listen, it's even more complicated, obviously, because many countries are now involved. Not only Israel and Lebanon, but we know Iran, the United States is involved. Because of the war, even the Gulf states have become involved. If you could just speculate a little bit for us, what would be helpful for your situation as Christians in Lebanon at this?
To find peace, to make peace, to sit together and to negotiate, to talk, to reach a peace agreement between all these countries, to finish all these problems. All the time there is struggles, all the time. Everybody has reasons to attack the other country. For many reasons, they have the right to attack the others. So it's endless wars. It's endless wars here in the Middle East. And the three groups are they believe in God. You are talking about people who believe in God, the God of Israel, the God of Muslims, and the God of Christians. Let's say it like this way. But I think reaching a peace agreement between all these countries is the best solution, and for the future. If we don't do this, problems now will be, let's say, ceasefire or a peace agreement for some time. It will again, things will repeat again and will come back again, and wars will come back again. It's endless.
Listen, we're getting near the end of our time together, so let me just, as a final question, ask you this. One of our sponsors in this series, and I want to say again, this series is Faith Under Siege, and it means all faiths. I mean, all faiths are being pressured in various ways in the modern world. What concretely, in the short run, can people who are watching this or listening to this do? I mean, obviously, they can support Aid to the Church in Need, which is, it's one of the major players in supporting Christians around the world. But are there other ways that, specifically in Lebanon, Christians or anybody who would like to help the churches and help Christians stay rather than flee? Are there some channels? Are there some organizations that we can recommend to them, or other activities that they can take besides praying? Because we're all praying for you for peace and prosperity and a return to kind of a normalcy in your country.
3 years ago, we had the meeting in Cyprus, for 10 years of the apostolic exhortation of Pope Benedict about the church in the Middle East, and ACN and all the Catholic organization were there, and they said that their decision now is to support the young generation, the mission, not to build the churches, but to support what helps the young Christian generation in Lebanon to stay in Lebanon, not to leave. And I think the main thing you can do, you said you are praying, but also to put pressure on your governments to work for peace, to find a solution. Anybody of us cannot stay in a place where every decade you have a kind of war or something, and living in insecurity all the time. It's insecure the situation all the time. You cannot live. You cannot have your family living in a country where it's like this all the time. Okay. And then at the same time, uh, encourage all the church, the church in the States to understand what is an Oriental Christian. Our mentality is a little bit different from yours, and the Oriental churches. We are Catholic, but we are not Latin. We say always this. We are Arabs, but we are not Muslims. Because when you say Arab, you say Muslim. We are a minority who is witnessing to Jesus in this area. We have to stay here. Support us to stay. Put peace in the Middle East, and everything will come after that.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Yeah, thank you very much. And I
For
appreciate
you,
what you said about learning about the differences, because I think very few people in the West understand that there is an Eastern form of Christianity, and those distinctions that there can be Christian Arabs. Not all Arabs are necessarily Muslim. And we hope that this series of podcasts, which I want to say again is called Faith Under Siege, will help people to become more familiar with what's going on in the church in the world, but also to encourage people to make a positive effort to learn about places like Lebanon. So we thank you again, Bishop Georges Bacouni, who's the Melkite Bishop of Beirut. You've heard the awful circumstances that they're dealing with there, and it really is very important that the next generation, that historic Christian community that has existed in the Middle East since the very beginning of Christianity, finds some way to live there and to flourish. So that's all our time. We hope to see you again in this series. And please, I encourage you again, look up Age of the Church in Need and other organizations that are involved in helping Christians around the world who are being persecuted and even in this time of ours, martyred. I'm Robert Royal. See you again.